Pat Mayo Hour.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Hour, UFC 201 DraftKings picks preview with Cody Saftik. But before we get to that, today's show is being brought to you by FantasyJocks.com. If you want a belt or a handsome ring like that one over there, or a full draft board to draft this season for fantasy football, go to FantasyJocks.com and get some in you. Cody Saftik, what's happening, man?
Yeah, I feel like I want one of those belts. But
there's the belt right there.
Yeah,
the belt.
It's basically just a ripoff of the Intercontinental title, I believe.
It's a bit bigger. Well,
it's nice,
it's like the old Intercontinental title where I like it when the belt goes out a bit. There was that Intercontinental title for a while that was just like the same like width all the way through. I didn't like that one.
When I was a kid, bar none, my favorite belt was the European title. And then
I got the European title
everybody
too.
They're bullying me. They're like, that's the loser title.
It was the loser title, but it looked good.
Sweet guys used to hold that title.
Yeah,
but it was always the mid-pack guys.
Yeah, British Bulldog held it at one point. So
that's
did
when it was
Shawn Michaels.
prestigious. That was
And
prestigious.
Triple H.
By the end, D'Lo Brown had it.
Then he paralyzed Draws.
Ooh, yeah. Draws got a full-time, lifetime job out of that, so things could be worse.
Draws used to play in the NFL, too. Threw up on Monday Night Football.
CFL, was it? Oh,
No.
that's why he got the puke gimmick.
Yeah,
Right. But he played CFL, too, I think.
Maybe. He played for the Broncos for one season at least. I think he was a special teamer.
If you could play special teams on the practice squad for the Broncos, you could make the CFL.
Oh, go, most definitely.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, let's get into UFC 201. Robbie Lawler, Tyron Woodley. Is this a match you're going to target for DraftKings or just leave it off the table?
You know what? I was actually thinking it wouldn't be the worst play in the world to, if you were going to kind of take a punt, so to speak, you would take someone like a Tyron Woodley.
Woodley's $9,000.
He was too expensive to end up being a punt. That was
Okay.
a problem. I was hoping to get him between 86, 88, 89 tops. And even then, I don't think I would have been able to afford him.
But you think he can win?
I think he has a shot to win, especially when you're looking at 5 rounds, and that's the new thing I'm looking for, especially for cash game situations, as we saw with Valentina Shevchenko last time around.
Yes, but I feel like the 5
beating her
rounds... It's true, but with the 5 rounds, I feel it works better for women's matches than men's matches because the potential for high-volume striking and 5 rounds is there, where if that's the case in a men's match, someone's going to get knocked out.
Fair enough. Now, Robbie Lawler, I believe it would be his last 3 fights. One of them, he got hit with 148 significant strikes, and the other one, he got hit with 123 significant strikes.
And won both?
It won both of them.
Okay.
Right. So he can take a lot of damage, and the way he fights is in that 4th and 5th round, he's slinging. He does not defend himself particularly well, but he can take an awesome punch. And I feel like if you're going to be able to get into a war with Robbie Lawler, and he's been in 3 wars in a row, so I don't necessarily think this is going to be another war. But he's starting to get a little long in the tooth. And Tyron Woodley's got a lot of punching power. He's, at least certainly on paper, he's the better athlete. He's going to be a little quicker, and he's certainly a lot fresher. He's 3 months older than him, but he has not nearly had the wear and tear. So in a 5-round fight, if you can just pick him away and just win the fight, and it's not the greatest fight in the world, but you can get that 5-round decision, then if he was $86, $88, $100, I could definitely afford it. And if I was going to take a punt on him, and there's definitely a possibility he goes out there and lands something and knocks out Robbie Lawler, then once again, the pricing's good. But for $9,000, I just couldn't quite seem to make it work. And for Robbie Lawler, who I'm a massive fan of, once again, I'm a little worried. He's had a lot of wear and tear in his last couple performances.
He also doesn't seem like the highest DraftKings scorer in general. Unless he's getting a quick knockout, it doesn't seem like he's going to pile up a lot of points along the way. He'll just get a win, and if you get a decision win or a win in the 4th or 5th round, it's not really all that great, especially for 10-6.
Well, he's guaranteed, if he's going to go the 5 rounds, I can't guarantee anything, but he's pretty much guaranteed to land 100 significant strikes.
So that's 50 points.
So he'll get 50 points, and then mix in there, he'll try to, saw a couple of reverse positions, but more than that, you'll get the 50 points from that, you'll get the win bonus.
Which is like 10 points if you win by decision, which is nothing.
Right. I would estimate...
For his price, it seems like a lot.
Yeah, but his basement's probably 75 points, 70 points. So in that regard, I could understand it, but I'm looking for finishes.
Yeah, so we're always looking for finishes.
Always looking for the finishes. So Robbie Lawler's
quick finishes too.
Quick finishes, and in his last 3 fights, in his last 5 fights, I believe he's finished one of those guys, and it was in the 5th round, right?
Which doesn't do us any good.
It's late, and that's the thing with him. He's a power puncher. Don't get me wrong. If he hits you, he's going to put you out. But taking on Tyron Woodley, a guy that's been knocked out once in his career, I don't know that the knockout materializes. So I couldn't really afford Robbie Lawler. I didn't really want to take that play on Robbie Lawler. And then flip side to that, Tyron Woodley, if he does win, it's going to be a tough fight. And for $9,000, I just couldn't really figure it out.
Is it that you like more guys at the bottom better for cheaper prices or around that range, or just he physically could not fit because of his salary?
Yeah, well, for Tyron Woodley, I'm not going to lie. I kind of thought to myself, you know what? For a cash game team, he's going to get some rounds in him. If he loses, I think he's going to lose a 5-round decision.
And he said
he's going to get some time in there.
And if he puts up, let's say, 130 significant strikes, and that's all he does, that's 65 points for a loser.
Yeah.
That's $9,000. That's great. points per price.
On a cash game team especially, and for his price point, I would be all over that. But once again, and as we talked about this last week as well, Robbie Lawler is the star of this show. There's not a whole lot of name brand. It's a pay-per-view. People are going to pay money to watch this, and it's not really a huge card.
Not quite like 200.
Not quite like 200, but the one main attraction is that, wow, it's got Robbie Lawler on it. And Robbie Lawler's opponent, Tyron Woodley, he's very, very, very strong, very good fighter. However, he's been on for over a year on the sidelines, and for a lot of fans, Robbie Lawler, he's been in 3 Fight of the Years in a row, essentially. I love this guy. He's worth the price of admission all by himself, and I like the way he fights, and I want him on my DraftKings team. Well, then you can have him on your DraftKings team, and I'm going to avoid him and try to get someone that'll outscore him, and then hopefully that makes my team that much better.
Matt Brown is the reason that we're recording this late. I believe Rammer and Robin were just talking to him here.
Yeah, that is true.
So I had to push back the filming time a little bit. That's okay. Are we taking Matt Brown versus Jake Ellenberger here? Because Brown is 10-9. He's very expensive.
10-9. So we're going to save some money in some other areas. But Matt Brown's the guy that you want if you want to go get that knockout. And we always talk about expensive players. Well, can I guarantee a first-round finish? I can't guarantee.
No, you can't.
Francis Ngannou, I could have guaranteed that guy for a first-round finish. He's 11-5 for a reason. In this case with Matt Brown, I can't guarantee you a first-round finish, but I really get a strong feeling that he is going to finish at some point. And the way he fights, he's a GPP dream. He never takes a step backwards. He always runs forward. He can finish the fight standing. He can finish the fight on the ground. He's got an awesome chin. He's got a great gas tank. He's a GPP play and a half. However, I think he's also very safe in this spot because Jake Ellenberger is definitely sliding downhill. He's not the same guy he used to be. He's lost 5 of his last 6 fights, and I think he's just not particularly a strong matchup against a guy like Matt Brown. So I like him on GPP, and I think he's so safe that I like him on cash games too. Okay,
so we were fading Lawler. We're going to go on to Matt Brown. How about Justin Scoggins at 10-4, taking on Ian McCall at 9,000? It's very similar pricing to the Woodley Lawler fight, but you like Scoggins better?
I can almost guarantee that this fight is going to go the distance. So I would not play Scoggins on a GPP, but I would play Scoggins on a cash game team because I think he's very safe. Ian McCall has much more experience. He doesn't have the more diverse attack, but he's just, he's a savvy veteran from around the block. He's been off for 16 months, and he's pulled out of, I believe, 7 UFC fights over the years due to injuries. Scoggins is a young kid, 24 years old, fighting his best fights currently right now. And literally just seems to be, I'm not going to buy into the hype and say he's on a different level, but he certainly showed against Ray Borg that he's making all the improvements in the areas that he needed to improve on. And against Ian McCall's, a serviceable striker, not on the level of Justin Scoggins. He'll get chewed up. He's a good wrestler, and normally I would say that's his path to victory. Just take Scoggins down and give him that old veteran grind, but we've been noticing with Scoggins that he's been shoring up his wrestling defense, so it's hard to get him down. His movement is far too good for these guys. And with Ian McCall, it's not that he's just a bad fighter by no means, but styles make matchups, and this is not a good style from him. He said a lot of negative stuff about the UFC in the past. He always talks about retiring every other day. He's rumored to be a massive partier. I don't think the UFC is particularly concerned with keeping him on the roster. Scoggins, they know they have something special. They want him to challenge for the title. This is a rub. You know what I mean? He's going to come in here and he's going to steal McCall's thunder. And it's not a passing of the torch like pro wrestling, because that would inquire that you want to pass the torch. McCall don't want to hand it. But Scoggins will go in there and he'll take it.
So you like Scoggins for cash?
I like Scoggins for cash. As I said, if you're going to bet it on a money line, bet the fight to go the distance. If you like Scoggins, I think he's at minus 290. Bet Scoggins by decision.
I got Scoggins at minus 245 here.
Great. Minus 245. Sure, I think McCall is probably plus 190.
Plus 205.
Plus 205. So, yeah, close enough. I think McCall goes in there. He's going to blast the 3 rounds, but I just don't think he'll be able to get enough offense against one Justin Scoggins. And Scoggins is young, and yeah, as I said, veteranship can sometimes go out there and squeak one over the young kid, but he's already lost 2 fights, and he learned a lot from those 2 fights. So, sky's the limit for Scoggins, and big fan of McCall, but I would avoid him.
Doesn't McCall have some weird nickname?
Uncle Creepy.
That's it.
Yes, that is very true.
I recognize that name.
Very true. Very true.
Your cash games have now hit 5 straight weeks.
I know. That's why, but I'm really into this, oh man, wore the same shirt from last week. This beard?
It's not going anywhere until we lose one here?
I don't know if I want to go that far, but maybe that's what I should do. Maybe it's the luck.
It did not start off well last week. 7 points from the first fight.
7 points. Didn't see that one coming.
And then the 2 upsets both hit.
You needed that. Yeah.
And then, all of a sudden you're like, oh man. I entered that cash lineup in a bunch of bigger GPP tournaments as a GPP lineup too.
Yeah.
I played the GPP lineup, which didn't turn out to be all that good. The cash lineup ended up coming the top 5 percentile of all these tournaments. It was great.
Yeah, it was good times. Like I said,
one player off. We've been 1 player off on a lot of these. We're gonna hit 5 of 5 soon.
100%.
And we hit it once early, back in February.
Yeah.
But we're due for one here soon, or a tremendous loss. We'll see.
Yeah,
But I funded all my
we'll see.
I funded all my PGA winnings this week through UFC last week. It was perfect.
Yeah, that's good, man.
Next fight, quick finish anywhere.
Quick finish right across the board. I'm going to have to say, especially if you want to play GPP, Nikita Krylov. This guy's a finishing machine. Big Ukrainian fighter. Used to fight at heavyweight. Now fights at light heavyweight. 6'3", decent reach on him. Kyokushin karate background, and that allows him to just be very mobile standing. And he hits guys. He hurts them. He's accurate. He'll put them down. We've seen him knock out guys that were 6'5", 260 pounds with a head kick in 25 seconds. He has that ability. He's also been shoring up his grappling game. He takes these guys to the ground now, and we've noticed his last couple performances, he can submit guys easily. He tires guys out. He takes them down. He chokes them out. He's looking like a very complete fighter. If you want a GPP, this guy, if you look at his last 5 wins, he's finishing all those guys. You want Nikita Krylov. Flip side to that is why I wouldn't put him on a cash game team is Ed Herman. 1 is my boy, but 2, he's a very crafty veteran. Unlike Ian McCall, he's got the skills to actually do something about Krylov's rise to fame. And to that point, and when the fight got announced, I was thinking, geez, Herman would be a good dog play. And Krylov was a minus 210. And then it flipped right over to minus 150.
Yeah, minus 150 plus 130 for Herman.
So big money start coming in for Herman because people realize 210, that makes no sense. This kid's young. He's young. And here's another thing about him. He signed with the UFC and he was like, I'm an undefeated heavyweight. And the UFC's like, we just signed an undefeated heavyweight. And then it surfaces, he's lost twice. Right? So I was like, why'd you lie about it? Right? And he was choked out both times. Ed Herman's a black belt. He's a pretty decent black belt. Long-time wrestler. I love old-timey wrestlers. He's either going to get knocked out in that first round, or he's going to be able to pull himself back in this fight, score some takedowns, grind this guy, hurt him. But for GPP, I don't care about all that. I have to take the risk, and Krylov's the perfect guy to go out there and take those risks. You want guys that are going to run forward. Maybe he gets clipped and maybe he gets knocked out. It's possible.
But that's
However,
what your GPP lineup is for, though. You
right.
need to try to at least wager on a quick finish somewhere. And is anyone going to be taking this guy? It seems like people like Herman more.
I would assume people like Krylov, but that being said, I'd avoid him in a cash game team because he's gonna get if he does get squashed, he's gonna be one of those guys that scores you 10 points
or less.
Because
we've seen that.
Because he's gonna get taken down. If he's gonna lose this fight, he's gonna get taken down. The other thing is Ed Herman's battle tested and has a good gas tank. And I feel with Nikita Krylov, because he finished these guys so quickly, what happens when his last fight went to the second round? Sure, but what happens when the fight gets deep in the second round? What happens when he's not on top of the guy's on top of him? Those are all questions that really haven't been truthfully answered other than the 2 times he lost. So I would have to avoid him in that sense for sure. But as I mentioned, there's a guy on the card, George Masvidal. This guy can knock out any human being in the world. Like, he is so supremely talented. I love this guy.
He's taking on Ross Pearson.
Yeah, and I have no interest in playing him because his problem is that he doesn't go for it. He sits there. He just sits there and he looks at you. And you'll try to hit him and he'll counterpunch you, and he's talented. And at any moment, Pat, he could turn it up and probably knock you out. Just more times than not, he doesn't. And that's why, even though he's got the skills, I don't want him. Krylov might be lacking some of those skills, but he's going to go for it. He's not just going to sit around and stare at you and be like, I'll get the win here.
Well, if Pearson can stay in that fight and not get knocked out right away, and maybe it goes closer to the distance, he's only $8,700.
Yeah.
Could he win that fight?
Yeah, I think so.
Could he
so.
last in that fight at least?
Yeah, last in that fight. Here's the thing. Last in that fight, I think probably, mostly because George Masvidal is so lackadaisical. He's the most confident guy you ever met in your life, right? And so in his mind, he's always like, winning this fight, no problem. So he doesn't really have that sense of...
He's expensive, too. He's 10-7.
Because at any one moment, he can just crack you and you go down. That being said, he's lost his last 2 fights, and both of them are by split decision. So he's always in close fights. Close fights that don't go his way because the judge is sitting there. One of them will say, wow, dude, that guy's really talented. The other 2 of them think...
They're like, no effort.
Yeah, the other guy was the guy moving forward and throwing punches. And Ross Pearson moves forward. He throws punches. He's better hand speed. He throws more combinations. He's coming off a fight 3 weeks ago where the guy held him. And he went into that fight saying, I hate the guys that try to hold me. This guy's going to try to hold me. Francisco Trinaldo held me. I want guys that want to fight. I want guys that want to fight. Both guys held him. He almost won that Will Brooks fight in the 3rd round, but he lost the fight. Needless to say, they get an injury replacement. We need somebody. He hasn't taken any damage because he got held, so he jumps in here and says, I want to throw some hands. And guess what? George Masvidal, he will oblige and he will throw hands. And I do see a possible scenario where Ross Pearson simply outworks him for a decision, but does outwork him. And for the price, I'm going to take a poke at that.
Yeah, for a pump play at $8,700, you can then afford 3 guys in the $10,000 range. That
Get some finishes.
Go get some finishes.
That's what I'm saying.
Wilson Reis versus Hector Sandoval. Reis is the most expensive guy on the card.
Wilson Reis.
God damn it.
I know. Got that one.
I know. I guess I forgot to mention that every time I do say a name wrong, you're going to hear.
And you got that
And
one
I just
wrong.
got one wrong. So
Yeah, Hector Kid Alex Sandoval. So this is actually why I believe that Wilson Hayes is the biggest fighter on the card. Wilson Hayes was initially supposed to fight for the UFC flyweight title of the world. Demetrius Johnson, longtime king, viewed as a pound-for-pound guy. And Wilson Hayes is a guy that's, he's not going to beat him. But compared to some of the other guys that fought stylistically, it's interesting. It's like, Wilson probably has a good shot. He trains with Dominic Cruz, the 135-pound champ. He's always in great shape. And his last time against Dustin Ortiz, he really, showed off some glimpses of brilliance in those grappling exchanges. People are interested in the fight. He's probably going to lose to the champ, one of the best ever, but it's an interesting fight. Now all of a sudden, Mighty Mouse, Demetrius Johnson, he pulls out of the fight. So they're like, okay, logic would usually dictate that the challenger is just going to sit on the sideline and wait for the champ to be good again. But he wasn't such a glaring challenger like that's the second best guy in the world.
So he needs to win to maintain his spot as number one contender.
Which is going to keep him motivated. But on top of that, they now tell him, okay, Wilson Hayes, you are fighting Sean Shorty Rock Santella. So he's like, okay, I'm fighting Sean Santella. Sean Santella doesn't pass his medicals. So now they're like, okay, we need another injury replacement. Okay, we're going to have Hector Kid Alex Sandoval, Tachi Palace Fights veteran. Love Tachi Palace Fights. This guy comes in on pretty short notice. He's a team alpha male guy. He's 5'2", has a 65-inch reach. Now he does go for it. He's got a good wrestling base.
$8,400.
He's $8,400. And Paul Shaughnessy made a good point. If you're gonna have a GPP, this guy's a good GPP play because he's definitely a punt. However, the way he fights is very aggressive. He moves forward. He throws punches. He gets in your face.
Sounds like he's going to get knocked out.
I think he's going to get choked at. I think he'll get a little too aggressive and he'll get taken down and Wilson Hayes will take his back and choke him out. The thing with Wilson Hayes, though, is sometimes he just positionally dominates guys, that he doesn't really search for the choke enough that $11,000 would certainly dictate that you need a quick finish.
You would need a first-round finish to take someone that is at $11,000.
And I'm thinking this could be a second or third round finish. Does he get the finish? Good possibility. But I don't necessarily think a first round finish.
What about Mike Graves?
Mike Graves.
Mike Cradle to the Graves? Is that his name?
He doesn't have a nickname, but that would probably be a
There
good
you
one.
go. I mean, when you can mix in like early 2000s DMX, I feel like you have to do it.
Oh, yeah. Mike Graves, sky's the limit for this guy. Comes out of that famed American Top Team gym we talk about. And he was on the season of The Ultimate Fighter, where American Top Team took on their crosstown rivals, the Black Zillions. Paul Shaughnessy and I did a season for that, kind of like the challenge.
Yeah,
right?
the Fantasy League, yeah.
Fantasy League, right. Mike Graves is the only guy that scored points for being intoxicated on camera, right? He then leaves the show. American Top Team loves this guy. He finishes the show. He wins his fight, his very first fight in the UFC. He leaves Florida altogether. And they love this guy. They're very, very, very high up on this guy. But he is from Georgia. He returns home to Georgia. And now he trains at a good but much, much, much smaller gym. The results is he comes into his next fight against Randy Brown. He looks good. He gets the win. And he does look good, and he has all the skills. You talk to someone who trains with this guy, they like Mike Graves. Problem is that he seems to have a bit of personal issues. He has stuff that just something's on his mind, right? Something's kind of pulling him away from having his full focus on one sole task. And when you get to this level, the better guys start to get, the more that their sole attention is going to be on you. However, I think this is a very, very good matchup for him. I think he gets the fight to the ground. He's got a nasty rear naked choke once he gets on your back. And we saw his last fight against Randy Brown. First round, he's all about just, hey, I'll try out my striking for a little bit, see how it is. And it's close. I think he wins the first round, but it is close. Second round, someone must tell him, stop trying to strike with him. Just take the guy down. Takes the guy down, gets on his back, chokes him out effortlessly. That's what he's got to do here against Bojan Velickovic, is just get the guy down, choke him out. You're the better grappler. He's a big boy. I'll give him that. He's a very big boy. But Michael Graves has faced guys like this before. He's trained with much better guys than this before. And don't play with your food. Take him down, choke him out. And if you do those things, I'd be very happy, and you'll be very happy too.
Cash game play?
I wouldn't mind playing him across the board, but I think he probably fits good on a cash game team. 10-5 is expensive, but he's very safe.
That's good. That's what that cash game is
Exactly.
safe. GPPs, risky.
Exactly.
That's what you need to know.
The thing with the GPP is I do like him on GPP, and I did fit him on the GPP. However, one small thing is I do, in terms of fight straight up, definitely like Graves more than Krylov. But in terms of a GPP play, Krylov is a better GPP play, and Matt Brown is a great GPP play. So fitting the three of them on your team is going to cause you to take some risks, which I did. But 10-5, I'm not huge on the value, but I do like him, and I think he gets the job done.
Let's switch to your cash game team right now. Let's hear the roster. Trying to make it 6 in a row. I want some money.
All right, let's try to make it 6 in a row. Matt Brown, 10,900. Always one guy on the lineup that screws it. I don't think Matt Brown to be that guy. He's the immortal for a reason. He died of a heroin overdose, and that couldn't keep him down. So I don't think any opponent in the UFC will be able to do that. Michael Graves, 10,500. Yeah, I just think he's
Cradle to the Graves.
Cradle to the Graves. You know what? I'd say highly underrated movie, but everybody likes that movie,
It's true.
right?
Everyone does like that
If you were to rewatch it, it might not check
Be be so great.
Yeah,
but like 13-year-old you was all in on Cradle to the Grave.
Saw it 20 times, man. DMX. And whoever thought he was going to be such a good actor? Who knows? Anyways, we got Justin Scoggins, 10,400. Once again, this is cash game team. I think Scoggins goes out. He wins all 3 rounds. He lands good amount of, probably some takedowns. Going to land some good strikes. He's going to, positionally dominate. I like him, and especially on a cash game team. Ryan Benoit. $9,500. Ryan Benoit's a guy that people tell you they're not necessarily high up on. He's got power. He's got good power. He's a young kid, 3-time state wrestling champion in Texas.
$9,500.
$9,500. Now, his opponent, Fredy Serrano, actually competed at the 2008 Olympics in Beijing in freestyle wrestling for Colombia. Problem is that he's 36 years old now, and he's 36 years old. He's got 3 MMA fights. He only really uses that wrestling base.
3-0.
3-0. So he's actually 2-0 in the UFC. So he entered the UFC 1-0 because he was on The Ultimate Fighter. Didn't win The Ultimate Fighter. Gets a contract in the UFC anyways. First fight in the UFC, Bentley Seiler. Not looking great, but he does land a punch in the 3rd round. Completely knocks Bentley Seiler out. His next fight, Yuji Kui, this Chinese fighter with 4 fights. He was 2-1 or something. He picks him up. He slams him. The guy breaks his arm 40 seconds in. So Fredy Serrano is actually looking good when you think, wow, he just starched Bentley Seiler and he just completely slams Yuji Kui and breaks his arm. Wow, this guy's not bad. I just think Ryan Benoit is actually going to be a little bit better in every one domain, except for the offensive wrestling. Offensive wrestling is not going to be able to match a guy that went to the Olympics and won a bronze medal at the 2007 Pan American Games. Listen, I'm not taking anything away from Fredy Serrano. He's a good wrestler. Problem is, this isn't 2005 anymore. You can't just get by on your wrestling. Guys in the UFC are more developed. His last 2 opponents, awful. That's the kind of level of guys you would fight in 2005, where wrestling can get you by. But now he's getting Ryan Benoit, a guy that is a Muay Thai stylist, has those 3 state wrestling titles, so he definitely knows how to defend himself. When the fight hits the ground, he's going to scramble. And as unimpressive as he may or may not have been in the UFC, he's fought in better guys, and he's had a better look towards those guys. So I think this fight starts out, Fredy Serrano will definitely go for those takedowns. And I think that Ryan Benoit will either defend them, or he will get taken down, and he will get back up. Second round, Fredy Serrano, he only throws 1 punch at a time. Ryan Benoit throws multiple punches at a time, has a wicked left hook, and I think the volume is going to catch him. I think, personally, the fight more than likely goes to the distance, and I think that Ryan Benoit gets the win. However, do not rule a knockout out for Benoit. Do not rule it out. I think this guy's got the power. He's knocked out better guys before, and the longer this fight goes, he's going to have openings because the wrestler's going to start dropping his hands and just looking to time that one shot. So factor in that with the fact that the Colombian guy's still training in Colombia, which, how many other Colombian fighters are in the UFC? None. So why are you still training there? You're going to have to make the move at some point. But he's fighting such crappy guys, he hasn't really dawned on him yet. Oh, I can beat these guys. You can beat those guys, but what about the next set of guys? Ryan Benoit might not be that guy, but I believe him to be, and I hope he proves me right.
Is Benoit going to be on your GPP team as well?
I did not fit him on my GPP team. I got a nice little play, Damien Brown, that we can get to when we get over to that. I think he's got like as good of a chance, but he'll finish sooner. So, but yeah, no, definitely on a cash game team, because I spent money on the top end part of guys. I need somebody who I think is relatively safe. $9,500. It was good value, and I think Benoit either just gets that win by decision, or if he knocks him out, then I'm, as I said, very happy.
All right, well, let's get to the GPP team then. Who you got?
Yeah, the last guy on the cash team, Ross Pearson. But over to GPP. Matt Brown, $10,900. Same reasons I would have this guy. I really like him. Michael Graves, $10,500. Now we got Nikita Krylov, $10,200. Just the guy goes for it. And he's just thrown such good versatility. He's got good power in his hands.
Did Pepe win last week? He didn't win, did he?
No, however.
But is that the same sort of, like, we talked about that last week, that he's going to go for the knockout? Now, he might get knocked out because of it, but you do want that low ownership guy who's, around, he's not cheap, but, 10-2 is fine for Nikita.
Yeah, and the thing, a very similar situation. The thing with Pepe over Darren Elkins was like, listen, if Pepe's going to win, he's going to do something spectacular, and he's going to go for it. If he loses, Elkins is just going to get a hold of him and hold him down. Pepe goes out there. The first thing he does is throw a flying triangle. Second thing he does is try to get a flying armbar. Then he gets up. Then he throws a flying knee. Then the fight's going down. Then he reverses Elkins. Elkins has got his knee down, and I believe half a hand down, and he knees him in the face while he's on the ground. So he loses a point. But as Elkins eats the knee, he tries to get up, and he slams Elkins. Elkins floors it. So he loses a point. They resume the fight. Elkins is wobbly. Pepe charges him. And then once he didn't able to get that finish, he tired out. And even though he lost, and I get it, he did what I needed him to do in that situation, which is, man, go for it. You're $9,000 on DraftKings. he landed a spinning wheel kick to the neck. If Darren Elkins wasn't so damn tough, then, it probably would have put him down. But Darren Elkins is a tough guy. Ed Herman is a tough guy as well. So, yes, it could be a similar situation here where Krylov's going to try to finish him. If he doesn't finish him, that'll be Ed Herman's chance to kind of grind himself back into the fight, so to speak. But Ed Herman's a career 185er. He fought at 205 in 2002. But that goes to show you, one, how long he's been around the game, 35 years old, been fighting pretty much his entire adult life. And on top of that, he's not really a natural 205er. This other kid's coming down from heavyweight. He wasn't a natural heavyweight, but a big 205er. So I think for GPP, I have to have Nikita Krylov. $9,800. Damien the Beatdown Brown, correctional officer out of Australia.
Australia. And everyone's a criminal in Australia.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, he used to be in the army, then he became a correctional officer, and he's like, oh, my wife's not allowed to call me at work. He's like, I knew something was wrong when she called. And I guess he got the UFC call, and she was like, shit, I can't tell them, like, oh, he'll call you when he gets home. So she's like, I got to call him. So she calls him. She's like, yo, your UFC debut is in Australia. It's in 7 days. He's like, crikey, I just had pizza last night, mate. But he goes to the fight. He goes to 3 rounds. He pretty much gets beat up. He showed some high spots, but he's 100% not UFC caliber. He's 15-9. He's 9-9 in his last 18 fights. He's a local guy from Australia who they needed to fill in the spot. However, UFC is very grateful when you do that. They will give you another fight. In this case, they've told him, we'll give you another fight. And he's getting Cesar Arzamendia, who's a Paraguayan Muay Thai champion, who is no good. He's also coming off a season of The Ultimate Fighter in Tough Latin America, in which he took a shot in the body on the ground. He rolled over and tapped. It was like, stop.
What?
Yeah, I know.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
Yeah, well, it looked like it was a hard shot to the body, but same thing. I've watched 10,000 fights, and I could name you other instance where it happened. So it was like, oh, geez, this Muay Thai champion apparently is not too firm in the gut. Goes to the UFC, has his UFC debut. They're like in a short clinch position, and then this guy, Marco Polo, he leans out, and he gives him like a short left hand, and this guy like out, sprawled across the canvas, completely out. So it's like, okay, it's kind of chinny. His cardio is not very good. He goes for it, but Damien Brown's really hard to put away. He's got 9 losses. He's been knocked out 1 time. I don't think the knockout materializes. And the thing with Cesar Arzamendia is if he doesn't get it in the first 3 minutes, then he starts to get tired. And when he starts to get tired, it's not that he quits, but his game just completely falls apart. And so now he's trying to wrestle more. But against Damien Brown, purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a guy that's been trained since 2008, I think he's going to be better on the ground. I think he's going to be ever so slightly stronger. When he was in the Army, he was like a fitness instructor there, like combative forces. You're basically making sure the guys are in shape. He is in good shape. And above all else, his last fight in Brazil or in Australia, when he took it on short notice, he took it on 7 days. This time he's at a 12-week camp. First 4 weeks, he was a correctional officer during the day and training at night. The last 8 weeks, his job's given him off. He's done nothing but train. And I think that it's going to prove the difference here. I think he gets Cesar Arzamendia down. And here's the thing with Arzamendia, and that's why I want Brown in my GPP. Arzamendia will just fade out after 3 or 4 minutes, and I think Brown puts him away. I think Brown's just going to get into a compromising position. He's either going to pound him out and get a TKO. He does have good ground and pound. And if he doesn't get the ground and pound, Arzamendia will give up his back at some point. He's going to get choked out. So, as I mentioned, Damien Brown is not a UFC quality guy. He's not on that level.
But he's better than Cesar.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
There we go. Last guy.
Got to finish it off with a girl, actually.
Okay.
Karolina Kowalkiewicz. Now, I say Kowalkiewicz. I might get the buzzer on that because people also call her Kowalkiewicz. But anyways, I think it's Kowalkiewicz. And she is supremely well valued. Here's the thing with her opponent.
$8,600.
Yeah, which is crazy. Rose Namajunas, her opponent, very highly touted. However, her last fight went the distance, and it was a fight that most observers thought that she lost. Tisha Torres probably should have beat her. Karolina Kowalkiewicz, this girl never gets tired. She always comes forward. She throws a lot of punches, and I mean a lot. And they're not exactly the most technical punches. But when you got 5 of them coming at you, 3 or 4 of them hit, that's good for DraftKings, first of all. Second of all, she does not going to get put away. She's undefeated in her career. She's never been finished. She's good on the ground. She's good standing. Her cardio is amongst the best in the entire division. And she's a gamer. She's 3 fights into her UFC career.
And female fights don't go by without the upset winning every time, it seems.
Yeah, and if the upset doesn't hit, if she loses, which is a bummer, especially because it's GPP, that screws me. But if you do want to flatter a girl like that on a cash game team as well, she will get significant strikes because she throws so much volume. And I do believe her to have a legitimate chance at winning this fight. And if she can go out there and actually have a good performance, maybe even use her ground game, not likely, but if the fight does hit the ground, I think she has a very good ground game, very underrated. If it just stays standing and she goes out there and she lands her 80 or 90 significant strikes with a couple takedowns and a couple position changes, and she gets the win, I would be happy. The thing with GPP is you're really banking on getting a finish, and the only way this is a finish is this is the sport of MMA, and a lot of times you don't see it, and it happens.
But it's okay, though. At $8,600, even on a GPP team, even if she grinds out 3 rounds and loses and does pile up a lot of significant strikes, the money that you've saved with her to put onto the other guys who you hope do get the finishes, those 4 people finish, you're good.
Yeah, also, the betting line's like minus 280 Rose, and I mean, very grossly overrated here. I mean, she's a tough girl.
I got 240.
Yeah, you know what, I'm not that I don't know these prices, but yeah.
They change throughout the week.
They change. I guess that's what I had it at. But either way, yeah, so people are starting to notice 280, I don't know about that. It's coming to 240. 240 should really realistically end up at like minus 180, minus 190 tops. But there's a countdown special. Oh, you have Road to UFC 201. The top part, yeah, it's Robbie Lawler. Oh, it's Tyron Woodley. The second part is Rose versus Karolina. People like Rose. People like to get behind her. They see her as a 2.5 to 1 favorite. I would assume, and this is just an assumption, I would assume people do pick her. I would assume she's fairly highly owned, and that even just getting one over on her and taking the dog would probably serve me well.
Cody Saftik. Check him out on Twitter at CJ Saftik. And remember to watch and listen. Doesn't matter where it is, YouTube, Podomatic, iTunes. Check out the Bookie Beatdown, the full MMA betting and DraftKings podcast with Cody and Paul Shaughnessy. This is sort of like the abbreviated version for my DFS guys. I'm Pat Mayo. You can follow me at the PME, and that will do it. Good luck this week. Going for 6 in a row cashes, so the luck has been pushed to the side. We got some game of skill going on here. Anyway, I'll see you next time.
For the latest expert fantasy sports strategy and tips on YouTube, click subscribe. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and call your local cable TV provider to order Fantasy Sports Network, or watch us on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Xbox.